This is discussion number 2 of Government Chapter 1, Introductions to Government. Discussion number 2 is entitled Theories of Government Formation and the Purposes of Government. So how do governments come into existence? What causes them to form? The people who study government have come up with the ideas of 4 different ways that this pretty much has come about. Now, the first one essentially is called force theory. I've got my fists are bigger than yours. My friends are bigger than your friends. If you want to be here, you're going to have to do what I tell you to do. Some ways, some people appreciated this because there wasn't a lot of debate of who was going to be in charge. But force theory claimed an area. I'm in charge. You're out. Also, there's the idea of evolutionary theory. Now, I know that being in a Christian school, everyone has taught you that as soon as you hear the word evolution, you're think evil. This is not what we want to do. This is obviously going to be wrong. Evolutionary theory essentially says that the family state, if you're in a patriarchal society, the dads; if you're in a matriarchal society, the moms, but somehow the head of the household, kind of everyone listens to them, the family gets bigger, and they keep on listening to the eldest sons, and essentially this grows into an organizational effort as the family and the larger family and the extended family all cooperate into some type of state administration. There's also the idea of religious designation, where God said, I'm in charge, so therefore you listen to me. A lot of times, the religious leaders, priests, or whatever we want to call them, pick out their favorites, whether it be by dynastic rule or by some other type of sign. They say, this is the person who is supposed to be in charge. Our God says so. That God does not necessarily have to be capitalized. We can see this in East Asia, where it obviously was not Jehovah God, just said this is the person in charge. In the 1700s, there began to be some philosophers who started to interest themselves in developing what was called the social contract. And the social contract essentially says is that people that want to have government, in fact, people need to have government, and people realize that government is necessary and proper. Therefore, they have someone chosen to be their leader. And if they are a leader that no longer enjoys the confidence of the people will remove them. And so it is an understanding between the governed and the governor that they better keep on doing what they're supposed to or they're going to be kicked out. Now, the idea of social contract actually applied to the first 3 ones that we also talked about, because remember, especially in ancient times, you had one pharaoh and thousands of subjects. And if they got ticked off enough at the pharaoh, one pharaoh, even if and thousands of people, eventually the one person's going to lose. Same thing with evolutionary theory or divine right, where you just say, hey, you no longer have the confidence of the people. God must not like you either, and things go terrible, and then all of a sudden God says, you're not the one, you're out. Okay? Um, we can take a look at a very particular type of laws that are in the United States that we all have to pay attention to. They're called zoning laws. It's how are you allowed to use your land. Now, force theory is someone just comes around and says, you're not going to do what you'll only do with this land what you're supposed to do with this land. And this is what it is, and if not, I'll beat you up. All right? Or I'll take it away from you. Evolutionary theory, the family kind of determines who gets what, who does what, that type of thing. Again, the control of the land. The social contract, we have an agreement amongst the many people who live in our areas of what can be in that immediate location. Do you want your house right next to an iron factory? Do you want your house right next to a dump? Do you want your house right next to a hospital? Do you want your house right next to a fast food joint? Now, some of you might be going, yeah. However, realize that it has a lot to do with your property values. And if your property values are going to be affected because you have an undesirable neighbor because of industrial uses or industrial pollutions or noise or what time of day, you want to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning, but they're not going to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning because they're busy manufacturing stuff. We have an agreement amongst all of us saying that this is what is appropriate use of land. Uh, so that demonstrates the idea of social contract. So why do we have governments? Social contract says is that people want to have government and realize it's necessary. Well, if we take a look at the United States Constitution, especially the preamble, you're going to see that there was a very good elucidation of what does it need, why do we need government? To form a union. This is a group of people that want to work together to have a union, to establish justice, right? We want to have things done the right way. We want people to be treated the right way. If people screw up and injure us, we want them to be dealt with. That's justice. To ensure domestic tranquility, we want everyone to behave themselves. We want to have established a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things to provide for the common defense. If that someone decides to come change our way of life from the outside and use military force, do we just roll over? Or do we want to defend ourselves to prevent the autocratic dictator from coming in? So provide for the common defense that people don't attack us, to promote the general welfare, to give people the opportunity to succeed, to gather wealth, to live in a way that they so desire, which is to secure the blessings of liberty, which was a specific point for the United States government, especially when the Constitution was written, and that's why we had the American Revolution. These 6 ideas were written into our U.S. Constitution. So, what was our Constitution? Our Constitution was our plan, as developed by the Founding Fathers, on how to execute our government processes. This is what we wanted our government to do, that social contract idea. And so, the preamble kind of explains this is what we want our government to do, and then we see Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the amendments all lining them up and saying this is how we want our government to act according to these 6 purposes. The end of discussion number 2, formation of government theories and the purposes of government, for chapter number 1, Introduction to Governments.